Howdy, all. I am Adam the Renaissance Nerd, and I'm coming to you today with the first in a short series of videos I want to put together. It's been something I've been wanting to talk about since about the middle of last year. Beginning of last summer, where I really saw this beginning. And I've wanted to do it, but up until now, I had to chase trends. I had to do things to try and get some traction, get this channel moving forward. But here we are. We're over 1,000 subs. I've got a certain amount of traction. I got a certain amount of you that will always be here to watch my videos. So I have the freedom now, a little more freedom, a little more flexibility to talk about some subject matter that I really, really want to dig into. And what are we talking about today? Tabletop RPGs. And my theory as to why they're under attack by the Marxist leftist SJW virtue signaling wokeists. What is tabletop RPGs? Well, to put it simply, tabletop RPGs, it's Dungeons and Dragons, where you get a piece of paper, a pencil, some dice, and your imagination. That's what it's about. It's about imagination, where the sky's the limit. You are only controlled. You are only limited by how far you can stretch your mind. The only rules you have to follow are the technical rules about how much something does damage, how do stats work, what's the lore of the monsters, where do they come from, maybe a particular realm you're in, what's the lore of that realm. That's the world you're in. But when it comes to your character, when it comes to interactions, when it comes to having the adventure with friends around the table, it's freewheeling, it's fun. There is nothing constraining you. But SJWs, wokey leftists, Marxists, they want to control everything. And it is my theory that they have started this assault on tabletop RPGs because tabletop RPGs are the source, or one of the sources, of where creativity truly begins in a young mind, where we're allowed to think beyond the realms of normal, everyday, humdrum world we live in. We think about these fantastical realms. We think about these worlds where dragons exist, elves, magic, demons, monsters, heroes, heroines. It's there to be enjoyed, but they don't want us to enjoy it. They want us to play by their rules. So where am I going with this? It's very simple. Not last year now, it's already been 2 years. In 2020, during the Summer of Love, and if you're intelligent, you know what I'm talking about. That time of day where BLM got control of the narrative of cultural norms. And the leftists, which is what they are, they're leftist Marxists, they decided that Dungeons and Dragons, and we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons because it is the premier title, it's the most recognizable title. They decided that Dungeons and Dragons, something they have been hating for decades, was finally ripe to be tackled because nobody was going to stand in the way of what they had to say. And so began in 2020 the attack on Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop RPGs. It began in the summer of 2020 with articles like this. Wizards of the Coast is addressing racist stereotypes in Dungeons and Dragons. Changes to the drow and orcs and more diverse hiring. We present orcs and drow in a new light in 2 of our most recent books. In those books, orcs and drow are just as morally and culturally complex as other peoples. We will continue that approach in future books, portraying all the peoples of D&D in relatable ways and making it clear that they are as free as humans to decide who they are and what they do. Later this year, we will release a product, not yet announced, that offers a way for players to customize their characters' origins, including the option to change the ability score, increases that come from being an elf, a dwarf, or one of D&D's many other playable folk. This option emphasizes that each person in the game is an individual with capabilities all their own. Wizards of the Coast also said it's adjusting material that maligns or stereotypes real-world ethnic groups like the Roma. See, this is the problem right here. This is the problem. None of this ever had to be changed. None of it ever had to be changed because nobody ever thought like this. Real gamers don't think like this. Drow are historically evil. Orcs are historically evil. That's just what they are. Nobody needs to change their ability scores to be equal to human races, to be flexible. It's as free to decide who they are as humans. I mean, they injected their own warped social justice ideology into the game, and that's how they look at it. Because remember, they look at the world through race, sexuality, and gender. Normal people don't think like that. We just want to play our games. But it didn't stop with this. Wizards of the Coast began it. They bent the knee immediately because they want the acceptance of the woke SJW crowd. But it doesn't stop there. News sites, leftist news sites like NPR, quickly chime in. Short time later, within a week, Dungeons & Dragons tries to banish racist stereotypes. So boom, they made their play, and here come the backpats. Here come the virtue signaling backpats. The classic role-playing game publisher, Wizards of the Coast, recently announced some changes it was making to the game in response to the ongoing protests over racism and police violence. While this includes editing some past racist descriptions, only racist by your definition. It's just a description of a creature. That's all it is. Orcs are not black people. They never were, no matter how hard you want to twist that. And we're going to come back to that in a moment. As well as adding more diverse writers, the game's designers are also making fundamental changes to the way certain playable characters are portrayed. There's the fundamental problem in how they view things. The left want to tell you how to play. They want to take the imagination out of it all. They want to take the free will out of it all. That is the cornerstone, the foundation of what it means to play a tabletop game. The freedom to play your character however you want. But this is the far left Marxists we're talking about, where everything has to be in a silo, has to prescribe to specific definitions. Everything must be ordered by their definitions. You can't free think. But it didn't end there. Dungeons and Dragons to change evil races due to racial stereotypes. Wizards of the Coast says this move is a part of a company-wide effort to address content that does not reflect who we are today. They're orcs. They're monsters. They're drow. They don't exist. They aren't real. They're just part of a fantasy game. You have no right to tell people how to play. But that's what they want to do. They want to do. Dungeons and Dragons race issues have deep roots in the world of fantasy. They will never pass up a chance to attack J.R.R. Tolkien. In 2017, an article written by Sturtevant wrote that D&D's idea of race is a holdover from The Lord of the Rings and author J.R.R. Tolkien, who conflated race, culture, and ability. In his novel, Tolkien outlined the racial characteristics of men, of dwarves, of elves, of orcs. Tolkien created the blueprint for the troubling relationship between race and fantasy that would govern 20th century fantasies. The blueprint has been dissected by academics. Yes, we need academics to tell us how to enjoy fantasy. See, well, academia, the incubator, the host organism of far leftist Marxism. Academics such as Helen Young of Australia's Deakin University, who writes about fantasy and race. In a 2017 interview, Young argued that Tolkien's idea of race as a hard reality rather than a social construct was inherently racist. And while Tolkien may not have harbored extremist views personally, his work was filled with examples of good races with European cultural traits and bad races described through Orientalist stereotypes. You understand what we're dealing with here. You look at the way these people speak. They inject their warp world views, their skewed perception of reality into something that doesn't harbor any of that. They only want to tear down. This isn't about creating. This isn't about equality. It isn't about diversity and inclusion. This is about control. They want to control how you think and how you play, because if you get them while they're young, a Marxist tenet, when you get them while they're young, you can indoctrinate them and get them to think the way you want to. And that's what this is all about. This is all about controlling the youth, because that's where the creativity starts. I said this before. The creativity in all of this begins when you sit down to play and let your imagination go wild. They want to control how you think. They want to tell you that this is racist, this is wrong, this is evil, this is good, this is right. You need to think like this because it's your moral obligation. Nobody for, and we're talking D&D lifetime, nobody for 30, 40 years ever thought that race had anything to do with Dungeons and Dragons, monsters, creatures, races. Nobody ever thought about racism. You just played. Men played women. Women played as men. Men created different looks than their actual look. You know, you don't have, that's the beauty of it. You didn't actually, you create a character, doesn't have to look like you. But in the world of the SJW warped logic, you can only do something if it looks like you. You can only relate to something if it looks and behaves like you. We can't appreciate the beauty of something else. We can't want to aspire to be like something else. We can't want to pretend to be like something else. No, we can only connect if it's our gender, our race, our sexuality. That's the woke SJW mindset. By the end of the year in 2020, here come the continued backpats. Dungeons and Dragons racial reckoning is long overdue. The tabletop game's storylines are infused with regressive stereotypes about race and power. Here comes the patriarchy. Now here comes the patriarchy argument. Players are on a quest to rewrite that narrative. No, fake players. Real players never thought about it because in a world of Dungeons and Dragons, whatever realm, whatever setting you played in, it was open. Free. You made it up as you went along sometimes. The dungeon master was controlled. They just made a game and you played. But no, to these idiots, throughout the 50-year history of D&D, some of the peoples in the game, orcs and drow being two of the prime examples, have been characterized as monstrous and evil, using descriptions that are painfully reminiscent of how real-world ethnic groups have been and continue to be denigrated. You see, they hammer it over and over and over again that it's inherent. It's in there. It's baked into the cake. So you're playing this and you don't know you're being racist because it's always been racist and you need to be educated. It needs to be redone because we're going to do it better. That sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? We're going to do it better. We're going to do it better. And in the beginning of 21 Wired, they continue in D&D must grapple with the racism in fantasy. Once again, taking pot shots at J.R.R. Tolkien, who just wanted to create a new mythology for his people after the horrors of World War I. What is an orc? To their creator, J.R.R. Tolkien, they are squat, broad, flat-nosed, sallow skin, with wide mouths and slant eyes. In fact, degraded and repulsive versions to Europeans. Least lovely Mongol types. More than half a century after Tolkien wrote that description in a letter, here is how Dungeons and Dragons described the orc in the latest monster manual, where all such demi-humans are relegated. Orcs are savage raiders and pillagers with stooped postures, low foreheads, and piggish faces. Half orcs are half human and therefore playable according to the player's handbook's rules, are not evil by nature, but evil does work within them. Some venture into the human-dominated worlds to prove their worth among other civilized races. They inject their own warped reality again. Can't have anything nice. Can't just have a nice fantasy world. Can't have good and evil. Everything has to be part of your propaganda SJW woke narrative that everything has to be relegated to the real world. Remember, everything has to be grounded in the real world then, because the real world is everything to them. It's everything. Because they have no creativity. They have no soul. They're empty inside. To them, unless you see something that looks like me, it can't be real. So it has to be the real world. Everything has to be race-related. Otherwise, to them, it doesn't make sense. Genetic determinism is a fantasy tradition. Dwarves are miners and forgers. Half-orcs are rampageous. Elves have otherworldly grace and enjoy poetry. Dark elves, known as drow, have skin that resembles charcoal and are associated with the evil Spinal Queen Lolth. As both a rule set and a fantasy backdrop, D&D is the business of translating these racial differences into numerical scores. Dwarves get extra points whenever they try to hit something with a battle axe. Elves get +2 dexterity. Half-orcs savage attack lets players reap extra damage of a critical hit, all because of their race. Yes, it's called racial bonuses. That's all it was. That's all we ever thought. It's like, oh, okay, if I do this, I'm going to get a little extra bonus like this, in addition to my enjoyment of wanting to be this particular race. And if you got a negative or a positive, you tied it into your character's backstory, into how you played them. It's part of role playing, being something other than yourself. But the SJWs don't understand that. They don't get that because, as I keep saying, they only believe you can relate to something if it looks like you, breathes like you, smells like you. And guess what? SJWs smell really bad. Bunch of damn hippies. And it doesn't end here. Just a few scant weeks ago, Dungeons & Dragons Wizards of the Coast removes problematic lore. Wizards of the Coast is making a variety of changes to its Dungeons & Dragons books with the intent to remove lore deemed to be problematic. These stereotypes can be traced back to roots of D&D with greedy dwarves, violent orcs, and evil dark elves. Any generalization about the entire race of people has the potential to be problematic. And the Wizards of the Coast has begun walking back parts of their publication that could in any way be used to further such ideas. Here's the problem again. These people only worrying about fee-fees. People worried about the fee-fees of others who are never even going to play these games. Because they don't care about it. They only care about it to control how you think. That's what this is about. It's about control. Telling you that it's problematic and you can't have fun with it because it's problematic. It has to be modernized. It has to be updated to fit today's cultural standards. You know what? Today's cultural standards are messed up. Screwed in the head. They don't know their ass from their face. In fact, their asses are their faces because all they do is spew crap. These people are broken. They're broken. And they want to break everything else. But they want to do it in a harmful way. And as I said, this whole mission to rewrite Dungeons & Dragons, it's a mission to indoctrinate children. Because children are the ones who first play this. At around, I started playing when I was 9 years old. I started playing at 9, and I got the experience, and I played for the next 15, 16, 17 years until, life changed, and I didn't have the opportunity to play anymore. But I did play, and it was the beginning of my creative process. The idea that I can create worlds, create characters, and influenced me as a writer. That's what they want to do. They want to influence the children's development. They want to insert this horrific SJW propaganda and warp children's views of the world to fit their proper, not problematic descriptions of how one should perceive race, gender, and sexuality. This is a war, my friends. This is a war a culture war. We are fighting it. It is happening on all levels. And right here, it's been going on for a few years now. But we've been so wrapped up in trying to defend Star Wars, Star Trek, Marvel, DC, all across the entire war front. This one has slipped through, and I doubt people are really seeing what's going on. This is a threat to our children. This is a threat to the foundation of creativity, where it all begins. Because if they get them while they're young, if they change how they view the world through supposedly fun games like D&D and other tabletop RPGs, it weaves into their psyche. And one day they wake up, 22 years old, they've just gotten out of university, and guess what? They see the same problematic things that their SJW masters program them to see. All right. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Part 2 will be coming next week, where we're going to talk about how the shills push this fake gamer narrative. This narrative of, we're going to tell you how to play these games. All right. Thank you. If you enjoyed this video, a like would be appreciated, as well as a subscription to my channel. Comment away. You don't have to agree with every word I say. Normal people can find common ground. I don't care what SJWs think. I will never care what they think, because they're cowards behind keyboards. And as soon as we understand that we don't have to pay attention to them, that they have no power, they will fade away. Thank you again. Take it easy. Thanks for watching, everyone. I don't do Facebook. I will never do Twitter. If you want to reach out to me, email me at therenNerd@gmail.com. I'm on Getter now, @therenNerd. The Geeks and Gamers forums under @ROAS, and you can also follow me on Odyssey @TheRenaissanceNerd. Thanks again for watching. Take it easy.